What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Left-Handed Leftist podcast. You all, as always, my name is Carlos and I'm your host. Today we have a really special episode. Actually the first that we've had where we've been interviewing a local candidate. I know before we have had statewide candidates on, particularly Andy Ellis and Owen Silverman Andrews, representing the Green Party, run for governor and lieutenant governor. But today we have our first interview of a local candidate running for a Prince George's County Council seat. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of myriad of different things. We're going to be talking about data centers. We're going to be talking about what's going on when it comes to economic development within the county. We're going to be talking about the recent shakeup within the Prince George's County Council and a whole lot of different other topics. Joining me today for this incredible conversation is going to be Sherman Hardy, who is a candidate for the Prince George's County Council in District 9. So you all, before we get into the episode, remember, if at any point you like what you're hearing during this podcast, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Rate us 5 stars on any platform that you're watching us on, as well as hit that notifications bell so that you get reminded every time a new episode drops. And with that, you all, let's get it started. What's up, you all? Sherman Hardy, thanks so much for being here. How you doing this week?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. And what an amazing title or name for this show is. I just got to say that's pretty catchy and cool.
Thank you. Are you also a fellow left-handed leftist, but just in general, are you left-handed?
No, I'm a righty. Yeah, my brother's a lefty, actually. So I grew up kind of, dealing with that. And it was pretty cool, though, because, we sat on the opposite sides of the table. So.
No, I feel that. It's weird. I think I'm one of only 3 left-handed people in my entire family. Everyone's right-handed. It's just me and 2 other cousins. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's keep it that way. We're unique enough. I don't need people following behind our footsteps. Yes. But awesome. Thank you so much for being here and joining us and talking to myself and our viewers. I want to first just say, can you introduce yourself, who you are, and also why you're running for Prince George's County Council?
Well, my name is Sherman Hardy, and it's such a pleasure to be conversing with your audience at this time. First, let me say I'm a veteran. I served our country. I was in the United States Air Force. So I'm an activist and advocate. I've been serving since 2003, and I continuously do that in our community. And I think it's important for me running in this space in this time right now because we need some adults in the room. Prince George's County deserves leadership that's inclusive, that's in their decision making, because too often a lot of people are left out of the rooms, where these decisions are being made. And, we need to have growth that actually improves the people's lives here. And I'm running on fiscal accountability, on smart reinvestment and growth, and also restoring trust so that government can actually function again. Because right now, a lot of people have lost trust in our systems in the way that we operate in governance.
No, definitely. The trust in not just national but local politics is definitely not there at all. What made you go ahead.
Before you go to the next one, I just want to say that it's so important that people realize locally you can make such more of an impact than you can on the national level. And far too often people are concerned with what goes on the national level when really it's local politics that impacts your daily life so much more, and you have so much more direct access. And if we start getting involved in our local communities, then perhaps we'll feel a little better about what's going on elsewhere.
Definitely. Thank you for adding that.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to run? And knowing that this isn't your first time running, so what made you come around to this decision for a county council, and why not a smaller, like a city council or a delegate, senator, things like that?
Well, in my district, there is not a municipality. It's only the county. I'm in the unincorporated area parts of Prince George's County. And so I wanted to run for county council because right now we're at a crucial moment where we have lost so much. And we're talking about people, we're talking about businesses, we're talking about, the future of Prince George's County, essentially. I want to stop the bleed. Right now, Prince George's County is, like I say, we have people that are leaving, even to go and shop and dine and stuff like that. I want to create a space for Prince Georgians that reminds me of kind of like how I grew up, where we had community, where we had access to resources. Right now, so many people leave this county in order to go get health care. So those are some of the things that I want to make sure that we do. But most importantly, I want to bring back truth, trust, and transparency in government. I think it's a crucial time for me to run for office and bring that ethical behavior to the council. I've already been fighting on the outside, against impropriety and corruption within government. And so I want to take that inside work and actually have an impact.
Oh wow. Can you tell us about that? What are some of the things that you kind of fought for as a private citizen when it comes to accountability with whether it's nationally or Prince Georgia specific?
Well, mostly we've been working on things within Prince George's County. When I say we, I'm talking about the group that I'm with, Citizens for Accountability and Governance. And we have taken on a litany of issues. We do a lot of fact finding, investigations. We do most certainly a lot requests for public information and try to figure out how our government is working for us or against us. Some of the things that we have been a part of was when David Murray left the state of Maryland to go work in Illinois and was still receiving funds from the school board as a chair. Yes, I know. So and it was a cost of the school system. They didn't have representation. They certainly were paying an individual who had secondary employment essentially who was not here. That was one of the things. But right now one of our cases is in the appeals court. And that's with former school board member Shayla Adam Stafford. And that was an issue where she had legal fees paid by the school system to an attorney for a case that had already been closed and had never done any work for it. So
Wait,
those are
what?
some of the things. Yes, yes, yes. It's a lot of things that have not made it out into the public light. And that's actually can be that report was actually done by the Office of Integrity and Compliance at Prince George's County. So it's on their website. Everybody can see it. I believe it was between $36 and $46,000. I have to look at the numbers again. That yeah, and attorney fees that were illegal. And some of the other things. There's a lawsuit right now with the whole council shakeup, and so there. Again, there's so much that we're fighting to restore transparency within governance, and we hope that the community will join us in those efforts.
Yeah, that's even I'm also just looking it up too, yeah, about how 2025 Prince George's County Public Schools Office of Integrity and Compliance reported and flagged the improper payment of over $36,000 in legal fees.
Thank you.
That's insane. That is like one, that's even more than their than they pay the Prince George's County school board members. But that is insane that that has happened, and it kind of I never heard about it. Like there was no kind of public outcry about it. It definitely goes to shout out to you all for doing the work to not only like uncover it, but bring that to public light. But kind of keeping with what you just said about how you all are actually looking at a lawsuit when it comes to the whole shakeup. I call it musical chairs of the Prince George's County Council members.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about not just the recent appointments of Calvin Hawkins and also Ingrid Watson to work for the county executive office, but also the most recent appointments of three different council members, one being council member Walla Bagay, who was a district council person who got moved to at large, and also Tim Adams and Danielle Hunter, who were just recently appointed to their seats as well in the council.
Yeah, from a legal standpoint, and I'll speak not as a candidate, but as a member of Citizens for Accountability and Governance. We believe that those actions were illegal because the charter never was designed for the council to change the makeup of its body. We believe that the charter states that they shall appoint someone, as a body should appoint someone based upon the names that they receive and the resumes that they've gotten. Within that there is saying that, oh well, the councilwoman is the most qualified, and why not place her in that seat and do a lateral move when there's a year left, and they know the cascading impacts it will cause. And at the very least, it's definitely an ethical concern. It seems premeditated, and it's something that people in this county should pay more attention to and really be upset with, because now you have less representation on the council due to appointed members when it was never designed to be that way. At least 25% of the council, 3 out of the 11 members, are appointed at this point.
My gosh.
And for current council members to leave their district, and their supporters who voted and advocated for them to be in those seats, as most recently as Calvin Hawkins tried to run for county executive. And I understand that he said that there were, some familial concerns with the health impact of his wife, but again, you just left the county council and just went and took a government job for higher pay, and vacated your seat when you had constituents who depended on you. So, and the same thing for Ingrid Watson. And then the first thing she did when she went over there was accepted the resignations of the vice chair and also another member of that body. So, this is a lot of move ups and shake ups, and we have to really closely pay attention to see what's going on. Uh, accountability and transparency is so crucial at this point of our lives right here in Prince George's County.
Yeah, one of the things that was the most shocking to me, well, actually, all of it's shocking, but one of the biggest problems when it comes to Calvin Hawkins is because I look, like you said, he just recently ran for county executive in the special election, and my thing is, if you would have won, would you have stepped down from that
Right.
and then
Right.
just have another special election for it and an appointment process for it? And then to Ingrid Watson is also like, how do you, one, it's even people claiming that she does not have experience working with economic development
Mhm.
to be in charge of the economic development for the county. Do you think that with all of these appointments moving around musical chairs to say that it is a bigger scheme to really have it so that the quote unquote majority of the council can have their pick of people when it comes to the next election coming up this year? Or
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about just what's going on?
Well, you certainly trying to get me to go there. It's most certainly, personally, I feel like it's a scheme that's Todd set up, and this, it's like I say, they're playing in the public's face. Yes, absolutely. Your assessment, would be the same as mine and many other people who have, made an opine on this topic. It seems like it was calculated. It seems like it was very political for this to happen, and the timing of it was so, it was just so on time and, for what they wanted to do. So yes, absolutely. There is a sense that, this was a concerted effort to consolidate power, and I will say that that Edward Burrows, Councilman Burrows, could have orchestrated this with, along with the members who left as well as the county executive. I'm only speculating, at this point, so I'm going to say allegedly, or I guess I could say that, but, it just seems that way because having in a historical context when I know that he says that, what he did on the school board is similar to what, they're trying to do on the council. And at least what we tried to do when I was on the school board is we had some very awful members. And so we went into their districts and we helped elect them. Mm-hmm. We built a coalition of 7 members. Now, once we did that, the county executive wanted Juanita Miller to chair our board. But we got to 7 votes by literally picking members off. And I understand the passion around advocacy and legislative things, but in my experience is why progressives generally are not the most successful in this county. Because while progressives are focused on legislation and these wonderful causes, you have developers, you have the county executive, you have all these powerful people who they're not following these rules that progressives are following. They are focused on getting their people elected so they can have power. Like, hey, what needs to happen? What needs to happen is a transfer of power out of the wrong hands and into the right hands. What you have to do is take power. I mean, and like I said, I have flipped the board. I was on the school board, didn't like people were there. We flipped it by taking bad people out and putting good people in. And take over power. That's what a lot of these people are kind of concerned with, and that's what scares me.
Yeah, I mean, and in all honesty, I heard the clip that Edward Burrows said, and I'll actually clip it here for the viewers as well. And when he said it in that context, I, as a leftist, as someone who's on the left, agreed with it at first when it came to we will do it via the election system. We will run run candidates to beat out people who are currently in office. I think when you take it to a turn of like we're gonna just start moving around checker pieces on the board without the public having any knowledge of it or even a vote to it, I think it creates a whole nother ball game. But keeping in the same mood of
Well,
go ahead.
I do want to say, doing the election process, but doing it right is crucial because in the last election, they did a switcheroo before the filing deadline and,
Wait, what
inserted
happened
the
there?
candidates. I need to go back and get my facts straight
Hmm.
on this topic. And I wish I had one of my team members with me because they, recalled and tell the story often, Tanya. But yes, there and not only that, there was a letter that was sent out that we received that, talked about how Progressive Maryland and, other organizations were trying to, get their candidate, to win and the steps and actions that they were going to take. And there's nothing wrong with, rooting for a candidate and stuff like that, but everything has to be in order and decency in order. And, that's what my teammate was saying that, it looked like, they were trying to do what happened in Florida and, have candidates come in to challenge someone else in order for somebody else to slide in and stuff like that. So, but again, this is
Yeah, it's a disgusting, disgusting game out here.
very.
And even keeping in the whole allegedly schemery of it all, what are your thoughts about? I've seen a lot of people in Prince George's County up in arms about the recent appointments, not of council members to the executive office, but of the other department heads who are really
True.
coming back from the Jack Johnson era of like, hey, stuff money
Mhm.
in your panties and get out the house era.
You know,
What are your thoughts about just who you've seen come back to the executive office?
yeah. So definitely there are people creeping themselves back in and it stinks to high heaven. We are back in the Jack Johnson 2.0 era where, we're not, taking envelopes anymore. What we're doing is creating LLCs, and contracts. So, that's where we are right now. And that's something that I have been paying attention to with the county council using the local impact grants as well as the grant funding from the council's funding. And I have been advocating and speaking up about that and trying to be the fiscal steward that my council member isn't being for our community because I want to protect our dollars. We pay a lot of money in taxes and, that goes towards the services. So when we start hiring individuals, nepos or, whatever you want to call it, into these departments, from what a lot of insiders tell me, they're there just to watch. And also, of course, to get a check. But I think that it's unfortunate the county council doesn't have the ability to have the oversight necessary because they have now come together and said that they are play brothers and play sisters. So it's kind of hard to have checks and balances on government when you have that mentality and that mindset. But again, I know for a fact that it's not good for the people of Prince George's County.
No, not at all. What if you were to get on the council? What are some of the things that you would want to do to rein this in, have oversight, or put checks on this as well?
You just said the most key important thing is the oversight portion of it is to be able to call those agencies into to the council's chambers per se and have a discussion about a lot of what's going on. For me right now, I do a lot of researching and digging into the documents that I get back from my PIA request. And, for right now, it's mostly just emailing back and forth. But I would love to actually have those discussions and conversations in there where everybody else can see them. Because some of the stuff that I actually get, a lot, I have quite a few people in county government who actually talk to me about what's going on. And if only the public knew what was going on, because I knew that this snowstorm was going to be can we cuss on here?
Sure, we're a freedom of speech place.
I knew it was gonna be a shit show before the first, snow hit. So, and that's why I've been so passionate about telling people about preparedness and how we have to start looking at government in a different way. And this goes back to your previous question about hiring friends and family, and giving them an absorbent amount of salary, is that we don't get the best and the brightest. If we keep recycling the same individuals, we're going to get the same results that we've already gotten. The individual who was in charge of the snow plan was the same individual from last year. And apparently they didn't learn their lesson.
Wow. What? So the same person who messed up the first time, we're gonna bring you. Hey, keep doing your thing and keep messing up. Just one more clarifying question is that we see a lot of different people talk about accountability, and we see that when they get in office, a lot of these like conversations that they say publicly turn into we're gonna have these like closed meetings about accountability and what needs to be done. Is your mind or are you of the belief that these meetings, when you're calling, planning it in department to task, and actually having those conversations, that they be public conversations or like closed door meetings?
Let your light so shine. What's done in the dark will come to light, and we need to make sure that those are open meetings. Why are we having closed meetings when it comes to government? That's one thing I can never understand. This is talking about the public's interest. And I do get some things have to be done behind closed doors, but we were talking about an incident that has impacted the entirety of our county. And you're saying that you want to close the doors on them. I think that's a problem. Our group, I keep saying our group, and I know I'm here as a candidate, but and that's really where I am at this point. Ethics and accountability, transparency. We need to have an open, honest government. And that's the best answer that I can give you. And, there's going to be times, nobody's going to ever agree 100%, but at least give people the opportunity before you make up their mind for them.
Yeah, and I mean, and going back to what you said about the snow removal, and correct me if I'm actually wrong about this, your district actually gets the worst of it when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to cleanup, even when it comes to things like jobs, public transportation. Before we get into what the impact of the snow has been like for your district, for our viewers, can you tell us where is your district and what district is it?
Yes, yes. I'm from the mighty Ninth out here. Well, I reside in Clinton, but it has parts of Fort Washington, parts of Upper Marlboro, Baden, Accokeek, Eagle Harbor, Quasco. It has Rosaryville and Brandywine. So yeah, it's pretty much the entire southern part of the county.
Is that the like the largest district? Like you all
It
have like
is.
by area. Wow.
It is.
So it's funny. You all were my neighbors, a Charles County resident. So we were right there. So I kind of know some of the makeup. But can you talk about what were the impacts on your district when it comes to this snow blizzard?
Yeah. Well, essentially, I know that they had put a lot of effort, in areas where there's supposed to be hills and, excuse me. And, my area is a lot of land, a lot of roads, a lot of, um, and it has quite a few cul-de-sacs as well, like a lot of the areas that we have. And essentially, what happened is they are not putting the resources necessary in place. Back in September, they were supposed to have the snow plan ready, but they didn't. And they sent out a letter stating that they were going to be understaffed, undermanned, and that they didn't, get the contractors that they needed. So basically, they were saying that employees within DPWT and other agencies are going to have to backfill. Well, there are parking plan in the responds, and sometimes the school system, OCS, and the different other agencies respond to, the snow events. But essentially, as it pertains to the roads, we didn't have enough of the contractors or the resources necessary for them to clear our roads. And right now, that's a problem. And that's something that, they should have been looking at over time. I recall my council members, stating during the last briefing back in this, I believe in December or January of the previous snow cycle, and calling out, the council or not the council, calling out DPWT for their lack of service to our region, to our part of the town. And they said that they were going to correct it, but apparently, there is still a lack thereof. And quite frankly, we don't know the extent of it because the GPS trackers were not available again this go around this cycle. I recall in one of the briefings, they made note that because of the equipment, they needed to use because of the ice, that, the trackers weren't available or to that extent. So there was also a sense of not only were some of the roads already not going to be serviced in time, but it was going to be exacerbated because now there wasn't a cohesive response to knowing which roads they had already plowed. So a lot of people in our area, once again, felt like they were left out of the process, that they were forgotten about. When I first moved here, I hadn't really heard many people say it, but I used to say, I feel like I'm in the forgotten. And then I actually heard other people start saying that. So yes, there is a sense of that. being the largest district, with the largest landmass and the most roads that you have to actually do compared to inside the Beltway and, closer on the outskirts of it, it's more resources need to be made available to our district as well because, we're part of Prince George's County too.
Yeah. And when you say the GPS didn't work, so they don't know where they need to plow the snow or what? That's the
Yeah, they
weirdest
don't
thing.
know. Yeah, there is no, the real time knowledge going, back because that GPS is not transmitting that information to where it needs to go.
Do you have residents within your district who are still saying that they're dealing with the snow and ice and not being able to leave their home?
I haven't really spoken to a lot of people who have made that comment or statement at this point, but I know most recently, there were quite a few people who were saying that they were stuck, all across Prince George's County, really, not just in my district. So it's a problem that needs to be rectified. I can say that my street was not plowed after the storm, and pretty much the ice. I mean, not the ice, but the sun did his job because I mean, there's still a lot of, spots that are still left there. And there are a lot of ice patches on the road where the potholes are as well. So, that's another thing that we're gonna have to worry about after this is the potholes because they do get in those cracks and crevices and they expand when it frees. So watch out,
Definitely.
Prince George's.
I know, right? It's about to be even more treacherous roads than District
Mhm.
9 already has. And with that, can you talk about what's been going on? I've been reading a lot of news around a 311 service where people here were saying they were calling 311, it wasn't responding, or that they would list them as like, hey, you will get your road plowed or something, and then it was clearing it saying, oh we plowed it, but then
Mhm.
residents are like, no, that never happened. Can you talk about that? And also, what would you do coming into the county council to make sure like something like this doesn't happen again, or your district
Yeah.
isn't ignored again?
So yeah, there were quite a few people who are saying, that they put in a 311 request and it was immediately closed. There are others who are saying that they put in a request repeatedly that was closed as well. But that's problematic. That this systematic disconnect between 311 and the agencies that they pass those work orders off to, and the gap needs to be closed there because from what I understand, and I don't want to place blame solely on 311, but or place blame on anyone, but we need to understand how these systems work. And if they're passing off those work orders to DPI, DPWT, or whomever it is, we need to make sure that there is some kind of follow up that, before they close out those tickets, because otherwise, it leaves confusion and also people to believe that our system that we have in place aren't working. And also, it made me feel like they were cooking the numbers because that's something that a lot of people tout is getting those through on one numbers down. But if I was the council person, that's where the investigatory part of it comes in is being able to have oversight to ensure how those are being closed out and what the disposition of them are. And I will be able to get more information and fact finding through those means as well by being able to get that data and hopefully not having to wait the 30 days like I have to do for MPIAs. And sometimes they take a whole lot longer. There's a lot of delay tactics that come along with that. So, again, oversight is going to be key for me. That's one thing that I know it's not sexy for everybody, but it is for me.
No, especially in
Yeah.
your district, especially as one of the more ignored districts, is definitely
Mhm.
oversight is probably one of the biggest things to a lot of people. And I'm glad that you mentioned the whole PIAs too, because they also can get really, really expensive too, as you keep filing them. But can you talk about for you, let's say you do win, what does accountability from this look like? Because we hear a whole lot of council members talk about how we need accountability for what's happening with the snow, with the
Mhm.
roads, but no one really shapes it into anything. So
Mhm.
what does that look like to you?
Well, it means putting more pressure on the executive branch to do something about some of the issues that we're facing. I'm quite certain there are some levers that I will be able to pull as a council person. Right now, I don't have the means to express that, but I am quite certain that pressure could be applied to the executive branch to do something about some of the personnel issues that we're having here on the council and ensure that we could get not only qualified, but people who have proven to actually have done the job. that they're seeking for. That's going to be crucial here in the county. What accountability looks like to me is ensuring that we have a fair and balanced budget that is not full of pork barrel. And I don't know if you remember what that is, but it was definitely a saying from a while ago where elected officials added, we call it pork to the legislation or whatever it is in order to look out for their district. But yeah, right. Because again, I have seen millions of dollars going to nonprofits in the county who weren't actually registered. So I want to make sure that, a fair and accountable process is having that money spread across the different nonprofits in our communities, and especially to look out for some of the ones who aren't always receiving the funds from the county and making sure that it's a fair process, and that we're not duplicating the work. That's accountability on the fiscal side. So, also, we need to be good stewards of our contracts within a governance is ensuring that the construction contracts that we have has the clawbacks that we need, that has the protections not only for the county council and our government, but also for the contractors. We want to make sure that there is a fair and equitable process all around because that's how we thrive and that we grow. Nobody wants to feel like they're getting taken advantage of. And also, accountability with elected officials. I know, a lot of people, you be like, well, what can you actually do? But in my official capacity, I would, pretty much make statements or comments, as it pertains to some of the things that are going on that are improper. Because what happens is it gets brushed aside. And nobody ever speaks about it. I want to raise the bar here in Prince George's County. Not just tote it.
Wow. No, that's incredible. And even two last questions on the snow stuff. One is, and it's kind of overall question. Do you feel like the current council member for your district, Sidney Harrison, has not done a good job, especially when it comes to how you said he mentioned this last year that there was a problem with the snow? Do you feel as if there is more he could have done to advocate for your district, not just with snow, but just overall?
What does Mariah say? I'm not gonna go there, but I do know who Councilman Harris is, and I just feel like he has been non-existent on a lot of the issues that we're facing, or have not been vocal enough, or have not let our community know enough about what's going on inside government. There has been a lot of missed opportunities to reach out and tap into our community, and that's where I want to be different and where I want to change the narrative that we're not forgotten, that, our council members out there all the time fighting and advocating for us and doing the work and making sure that our voices are heard on that dais.
Wonderful. And then my last snow related question is, what are your thoughts on just the recent reporting that has been coming out about Aisha Brave, or County Executive Aisha Brave Boy's office spending upwards of almost $45,000 when it comes to hotel fees for herself, staff members, and some council members at the University of Maryland hotel for their, I guess, critical snow response? And then my follow up question to that is, would you have been one of the council members who would have stayed at the hotel?
I answered that first, no. And I would ask the rest, and what the hell are y'all doing? And that's the nicer version of it. But essentially, my thoughts on it is that it could have endangered the response or hampered the response. I am an emergency manager by profession. Yes, I went to school and got my degree in emergency and disaster management, and I also worked at FEMA at the National Integration Center. And what the county executive did was against the incident command principles and NIMS, pretty much creating a secondary leadership site that you're operating in a silo, and potentially pulling resources from what's happening in the emergency operations center. It can be contradictory, and it could harm the response to where things need to go. And I get the fact that they wanted to have the whole executive team together, and you know and we'll leave it at that. Because like you say, the council members were there and everyone else was there. We don't know for sure who stayed, and that's what we will find out in 28 days.
Okay, okay.
Yes, 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 yes. Immediately put out an MPI on that as well to determine who I was there, who stayed over, what, their position was within the response framework and everything of the sorts. Because again, it's all about accountability and transparency. The short answer to your question is it was unnecessary, and it was also fiscally irresponsible to do such a thing. We have a $32 million, 41 or 46,000 square foot state of the art emergency operations center where they could have operated out of. And, there was no fire inside. There was no fire. There was no fire. Everybody keeps saying, oh, there was a fire at the emergency operations center. No, there was a arc flash at the county administration building, at the Wayne Curry building. I have that on very good authority. Again, I wouldn't come up here and tell a lie on that. But that's what happened. And the county building was not closed. The county building remained open. So again, the question remains about the usage. Was it necessary? Was it fiscally sound? Those are some of the things that, and did it endanger the response of the storm firm?
Thank you for that. So, and yeah, you know what? I'm gonna save the fire thing for a whole nother conversation, but thank you. Cause yeah, that was always weird to me, especially because there was never like, if there was actually a big fire, I feel like that would be all over the news. It would be a big thing. Never really heard about it until, hey, got some hotel fees. And I'll say,
Conveniently, right.
right. And one thing I guess you shouldn't have to worry about in the PIA request is who was singing which song and like who did background vocals. Cause I will say they did a nice little lip sync though for our county, for the county tax dollars. So keeping it more in line with District 9. And we talked about it for like a hot second about how the infrastructure is really lacking within District 9. Public transportation is lacking, just
Mhm.
all of the
Yeah.
disadvantages within your community. What are your thoughts on the newly announced mini sphere that is supposed to be coming to bring jobs, to bring economic development? And especially when you have a lot of people who were saying when they were promised all this glamorous stuff. Hey, when it came to the National Harbor and MGM coming, but people said we never saw any of the profits. All it did was increase traffic. And yes, it's nice to go there, shop, casino, gamble, and all that. The
Mhm.
schools still do not have all the money that they need. And then on top of that, you have a deficit within the state of Maryland at the same time that we're going to be giving tax cuts out to large corporations.
I will say that I am not jumping for joy, and I'm also not sorrowful about it. I am weighing it thoughtfully and trying to determine, for me, I just want to see what the deal looks like. And I think once I get a look at exactly who's benefiting, who's paying, and things like that, that's when I'll be able to make an informed decision. But right now, everything is speculation. And, for the simple fact that we're getting a sphere, you know, I think it's, okay. I would like to see how the makeup of the overall Greater Fort Washington area, how that fits into it, what will come in addition to that. Because again, the county has a way of just piecemealing things together because it just sounds good. And I prefer cohesive development, infill development, redevelopment. Is that the best, place to actually put it? Those are some of the things that crosses my mind when I think about it. And I want to know exactly, is it abstract? Oh, the economic impact that they are saying that we're going to have. Again, it's too early for me to tell.
Okay. Okay. Definitely.
But
Definitely.
again, I'm
Mhm.
not one way or
You're
another.
you're and correct me if this is wrong. You're cautious, but not saying definitely no. You want to see how things kind of work out first. Okay, because I know it's definitely been a lot of conversation, and definitely research I've done because a similar project was actually supposed to be announced in London, but the
Hmm.
people of London actually said that they did not want the sphere because of the main thing with them was light pollution, and
The
you're
light
talking about
pollution.
something that's lit up 24/7, 365, and you have
Hmm.
homes near there. Also, you have traffic, electricity that they draw, and things like that.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest things that I saw around it was an interview with Jolene Ivy, I believe, who's the at-large council member for the viewers, and they were talking to her about the sphere and asked her, "So, what are some of the like artists who you're hoping to see?" And she mentioned Bruno.
Very geeked.
Jolene Ivy is an at-large council member in Prince George's County.
Most importantly, this isn't costing county taxpayers money.
You just said that this will not cost them anything. That seems to be one of the things that's driving concern about this plan is, hey,
Right.
we're taxpayers and we think maybe our tax money should go somewhere else before it goes to a sphere. And you're saying you're saying that Prince George's County taxpayers won't be paying for this.
No, we're not paying out of our pockets, right? This is money that is not coming out of our pockets. It's more like future dollars that we wouldn't even be getting if not for this project. People need to stop looking at it as sphere. They need to look at it as an economic engine. And we need to have more economic engines in our area. And this one just happens to be more interesting than most.
If this plan does move forward, it'll still be at least 3 years before the sphere is here. But that isn't stopping some wishful thinking. Who would you like to see play there for the first time?
I'm a huge Bruno Mars fan all day. So that would be my choice.
Mars. And it was funny because when you do the research, it's like, well, Bruno Mars plays arenas. He plays like 30, 40, 50,000 seat places.
Yeah.
You're talking about a $6,000 venue. So either tickets are going to be really expensive for these big name artists to have a small amount of seats, or you're going to have such localized small name artists who don't have the
not comparable.
Who can't fill up the whole sphere themselves. And with the price of probably running a performance in the sphere, it's probably going to be very, very high. But it's definitely something that I want to talk to some fiscal people about it, and also some people who know just like infrastructure and economic development, to see if this is actually going to be a good thing. What's one thing that you're hoping, whether the project fully comes, doesn't come, all that, what's one thing that you're hoping that you as a council member are like able to shine light on, whether it be making sure that the tax revenue actually goes to that area, making sure that it updates public infrastructure so people can actually not be bottlenecked coming down what is that 210? Yeah.
Well, that is definitely in District 7. So shout out to them. I wish them the best with that. But as far as District 9 goes, some of the things that I hope to do is to redevelop the Coventry Way shopping center, and also the Woodyard Crossing and across the street at the Landing. That is a huge opportunity to incorporate transit, mixed use development, housing, and create walkable communities. And then we also have a 7-mile stretch from Woodyard Crossing to Brandywine Crossing that is untapped potential. And we need to make sure that we are using our land, that we don't let it fall to neglect and, not preserve poverty. And that's what we have to start looking at it for the future, to ensure that we're building affordable housing for tomorrow, today. So that's something that, is near and dear to what I want to do. And also, I always talk about the equestrian center. That whole entire center could use a facelift, and also could be an economic engine for our community. It has been underutilized. Yeah, I mean, even though we have the national shows and we have the rodeo, the Bill Pickett that comes, we can do a lot more. And I believe that it can be more than a parking space for the courthouse, that we can generate income from that daily. But that includes, like I say, upgrading that facility, and temporarily fixing that sound system. Hopefully they've done that before graduation comes, but also to include lodging and, restaurants and different things like that. Because when people come to these international horse shows from other places, where do they go? We need to be able to capture that income and that revenue so that we can build our schools and pave our roads. Again, Prince George's County has a huge leakage problem. In my district alone, in District 9, there is about $56 million that is exported out of our county into neighboring jurisdictions. And I want to close that gap. I want to stop that bleeding. We have a huge opportunity to do some of the things that are necessary for our scholars. And but right now, by the families leaving and going to neighboring jurisdictions, we're giving that money away. We're paving their roads and building their schools and providing their services.
No, definitely. And one, thank you so much for correcting me. I did not know that was in that district.
It's all
But
good.
yes, but thank you. But also, no, you're right too, because one of the big things that led to Charles County being named the wealthiest Black county is a lot of people from Prince George is leaving to go to Charles County, whether that's for lower home or lower home prices, schools, and actually just economic opportunity and things like that as well. So definitely thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Two
And
other
we're
questions.
exporting that sprawl. You know, a lot of times our council has made a big stink, about sprawl, in which a lot of times I don't believe that people actually know the true meaning of sprawl. You know, they have taken the concept with it and have run with it. Someone said that and gentrification are the two most overused words within our community. But yes, essentially, the way that we develop, when we don't build mixed use communities, when we don't have walkable communities, when we don't have mixed income communities, we export that sprawl into Charles County. And before long, Charles County is, if they haven't figured it out, they're going to be in the same predicament that Prince George's County is in.
No, definitely. Charles County already has its issues when it comes to what around a little over 70% of the residents in Charles County leave the county to go to work every day. You
Mhm.
have not
Yeah.
I can't even say crumbling infrastructure because it's just non-existent. I mean, sidewalks, street lights, bike lanes are just not a thing there. But yeah, so there definitely are similar problems that kind of you all get hurt first, and then it comes to us, and they were like, oh wow, wait, we're having the same problem here too.
Right.
Two other things I do want to ask you about. One is a big topic. I don't believe this is in your district either. It's in Landover, but it's kind of concerned throughout the whole county is data centers, especially when you look at the drain data centers
It's a
do.
concern in my district too now
Okay, definitely. So when you
because they were trying to put it in Brandywine, but apparently they're saying that. It was going to be slotted for Brandywine, but they were trying to put it in the agricultural parts of the land. And, now they're trying to pass a bill that says that they can only go in industrial areas. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. My face is more so because hearing that they're trying to put in Brandywine, where Brandywine already has the most like centralized concentration of just
Mhm.
power
Power
plants.
plants.
I
Yeah.
feel like now we're gonna
Has
just
the
say,
most
hey,
contaminated air and soil in the region. It was number 10. So yeah.
that is just so. What is your view when it comes to data centers, when it comes to the use that they are the drain they are in the power grid, the high
Mm.
utility fees, when it comes to the health aspects of it? Yeah, how do you feel about the incoming of data centers
If
within
you
the
will
county?
allow me to be tongue in cheek for just one moment, and audience, I don't necessarily mean this. I'm gonna give you my answer in a second, but I just want to say put it in the inside the beltway, because every time you turn around, they're always talking about what they don't want outside the beltway, what shouldn't go there, we should develop, we should, be locked into preservation and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they're saying, well, maybe we can put it in the agriculture area. Well, no, baby, the rural tier is supposed to be exactly what it was established for in Plan 2035, and it will remain. So put it in your backyard. But the short answer is I'm not a responsive yes or no. Right now, I believe data centers are to our detriment. We don't have the capacity here in Maryland already. We're starting to hear the alarms right now when they're saying that, the energy consumption, even without data centers, it's going to cause problems where we may have rolling blackouts ourselves, so that's going to be a huge issue. And that's for any jurisdiction that puts them in their backyard, because we're all on the same grid. So regardless of, if it's in our backyard or another, we're still going to have that same impact. But right now, I don't think that Prince George's County is ready for a data center, for the simple fact that of all the environmental concerns, that it does have. And I think there are far more creative ways that we can do to generate the revenue that, we're lacking, that we need. For starters, agriculture. I want to bring back ag. But that's something I've been talking about. Equestrian. That was a huge industry. Prince George's County was horse country, and it was huge in farming, and it went from tobacco into winery. So again, and that's a start. We can most certainly move into a different space within agriculture, because a lot of people hear ag and they think, well, I ain't going out into no fields, and
I
it's
ain't picking
not
no
that.
cotton no more.
But you know what? Listen, this is sustenance. This is what you need to sustain life. And you should know how to grow food. You should know what type of plant is a pea plant or anything like that, or if it's a tomato, or, it's just to be so disconnected from the food is so tragic. And I get the historical context of why a lot of people don't want to go into farming or anything like that. But baby, get out there, touch some grass, put your feet in some dirt. It's so amazing. But back to the agriculture, it's definitely a viable revenue generator. It's a job creator. And it's also a way that we can ensure our food sovereignty and food security right here in Prince George's County. We need to have more farmers markets and farm stores within our communities, and that can close the gap, and also increase heart health, by having those choices within our neighborhoods, because right now Prince George's County faces a lot of chronic health issues, namely, heart disease, cancer, and also diabetes. And diabetes is certainly something that can be managed. And, having heart health, there are some healthy people that have heart attacks and everything like that, but we need to do everything imaginable to try to stay on the healthier spectrum. And I say that myself, and knowing the makeup of, all the chicken joints that people complain about online and social media. But there are healthier options, and we need to have programs to teach people exactly how those are. So, being in District 9, we're in a unique position to be able to have those relationships with the farmers and also with the business owners here in the county to kind of foster some kind of cycle to start generating and keeping revenue within our county, and also ensuring that we have healthier people within our community as well. And again, I also want to get into the food processing and ensuring that we have the available resources for that. We can definitely create a pipeline of students who go into that industry as well. And the market is right for it. We have the available talent for it. The need is there, and I think that we can make it work.
Wow, that's definitely. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about how. Well, one, I did not know that Prince George's County or that district had so much when it came to wineries, when it came to agriculture, but
Mhm.
also the. You're definitely right, and I mean, especially as we look at what happened with the COVID, when you only had these big, huge mega
Mhm.
corporations, doing produce, meats and stuff like that, we had a
Mhm.
huge chain disruption. So you're definitely right
Mhm.
about the jobs. One thing I do want to kind of have a clarifying question around the data centers. You said that you're not a definitive yes or no. Are you of the opinion that right now you don't want it, but it is something that you're open to having later on in the future?
Absolutely, because I understand that things change. And I think strategically, I don't think for the right now. And I'm sorry for those who want me to just say, no, hell no, but I have to think about the future. Because once you pass a law, that is the law and it does not change. And it's also harder to repeal a law or to get those special exceptions in order to do those things. So I don't want to lock us into something that we're unable to come out of in the future. But what I will say right now, I don't find them to be feasible. I do understand in other countries there are different mechanisms and tools that they're using in order to have a safer environment, such as, putting them inside the ground and doing some of the other the captures that they do. And if that is something that can work here in the States and it's beneficial and it reduces and mitigates the risk, then I'm open to it. But as somebody who's an environmental advocate myself, I'm not going to put my community in harm. I have to live here too. And I am a beginner farmer as well. So, stewardship of the land is very important to me. And again, so right now, the answer, would be a no. But
Okay.
in the future, it's possible, that we could say, hey, what, it works. But again, that's where the people of Prince George's County have to come together and say, hey, these are our demands. This is what we want. But these are the full stop no's, what we, will not tolerate. And if something falls within those guidelines, then, hip hip hooray. But if they don't, then it's not something that we can move forward with.
Okay. Okay. And then are there any specific regulations? Because right now the county is definitely looking at what they do when it comes to data centers. Are there any specific regulations that you want to see if the county is in the mode right now to move forward, whether it comes to not letting the county use or not letting data centers use public utilities, having renewable resources, things like that?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I said when I went to the meeting that they had in South County, I don't like paying my own light bill. So what makes anybody think that I want to contribute to somebody else's? So that would be one of the first and foremost things, on my list is that you have to create your own power supply or power source, or there will be no passing of the cost onto consumers.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. And then one of my final questions for you is, are you using the public financing within the
No,
county?
I am not.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know it sounds even weird when I say it for not because of what you're thinking, but I thought I was doing the right thing. I was like, well, the county is so broke, we don't need to be, trying to expend out a whole large sum of money. And I was like, well, I'll just make it do what it do. And it's definitely been a challenge, I'm trying to raise, but hey, I'm making it work. And what I can't do on the financial side, I'm going to try to make up in manpower. But yeah, I know I cut you off, but yeah,
Oh, no,
I
no, go
didn't
ahead.
do it. And they did ask, and I was like, "Oh, no, it's okay, Imma just." Yeah, I didn't fully understand the whole process of it, to be honest with you,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
it is
no.
what it is at this point, and I was gonna go back and I was gonna, look into, applying for it, but I had already had an event where somebody had, hosted a meet and greet for me, and at that point, I couldn't, pull those things back, so yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. I understand. My follow-up question to that is that are you swearing off taking PAC money, taking money from corporations and things like that? Or are you open to also taking their money as well?
Well, I'm like Bernie. I don't know anything about taking a corporate money or anything like that. I don't think any corporate people are checking for me to contribute to my campaign, if I'm gonna be totally honest with you. But as far as the PACs, not any, well, I can't get any super PAC money or anything like that, but I am from the unions.
Mm.
If a union wishes to support me, then yes. But again, I don't know of any.
So if a developer came by and said, Sherman, let me
Mhm,
give you this like, $5,000, would you take that? Or money
mhm.
from like the police union or from like the real estate lobby?
Well, I am a realtor, and yeah, that's where my advocacy actually sort of started at, being on the committees with PG Car. I was one of their directors as well. Yeah, I would accept money from PG Car or the police union, but again, I am a person with integrity, and I know that I have to represent all. And again, being in this game and understanding sometimes that unions don't support the people who they should, because even when they did not support Bernie. All of the union heads supported Hillary and others, but the people within, the camps in those unions, they did root for Bernie because of his policies and how he was a man of the people. I'm in a union myself, so I do understand the intricacies of all that. And I don't believe that it's a bad thing. I know
Okay.
it just depends on the person and their integrity.
Definitely. How playing devil's advocate here, if you are taking money from the real estate lobby, the police union, developers, how can the public be sure that those checks aren't swaying your vote when it comes to those same issues?
Well, I don't know which issues specifically we're talking about, but I do have a record that everybody can go off of. When George Floyd came, I was out there protesting, putting my body on the line. I'm out there in the Capitol. I was protesting here in Prince George's County. And also, a lot of people don't know this, but while I was a secretary for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in Prince George's County, I was one of the most vocal people who was advocating for getting the use of force looked into and changed once President Obama made that call. And then Angela also Brooks created the task force. So, and I also was a military police officer. I look at things from different aspects. When I was a realtor, I fought against a lot of the issues that, concerned residents here in the county, increasing taxes on certain businesses and also fighting against the increase in property taxes. I've been on the front of those on the ground for those too. My integrity doesn't change based upon um, who sends me a donation. Because quite honestly, I tell people all the time, and this is something a personal note. I don't like people to hold anything over my head. And so I would rather just go ahead and refund you, really, because I can't be bored for $5,000, essentially. I can't be bored at all, but
There you go.
I've always I've always been a free thinker. And honestly, when someone tries to force my hand into something, I have a huge problem with.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And final, or actually second from final question, anything here that we haven't talked about your platform, why you're running that you want to state as well?
Well, I want to say that I am Sherman Hardy, and you can find me on Hardy, the number 4pg.com, to check out my platform and who I am, what I'm about. And essentially, we really covered a lot of things I've talked about, my healthcare concerns and what I want to do. I still know that there is a huge wait time as it pertains to the hospitals here in the county, and I want to make sure that we enforce a law that they have to display their wait times in a visible manner, so that either that's online or a billboard or something like that, so people can have the option and the choice to know where they want to go. I want to make sure that we have healthier and safe communities, and that is looking at into the pedestrian plans to make sure that we have walkable and safe communities. Is making sure that we have our traffic plans are allowing the flow and the ease of traffic, because a lot of people are complaining about that. We need to have egress and ingress, looked into to make sure that we are releasing some of the patterns in our streets and also reinvest in our communities. We have a lot of aging infrastructure that we need to look into. And once we begin to do that, we can stop some of the retail leakage that we're experiencing and build more homes so that we can have affordable housing for people for 20 years down the line, a kid who's growing up right now. So there's a lot of things that I want to do for this county, but my focus is making sure that we have an accountable government to the people to ensure that we have the tools and resources and mechanisms in place for our constituents.
Wow. Sherman Hardy, you all, thank you for being here. And I want to let all of our viewers know, remember, this is a podcast, so please like, share, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, do all the things, and that you can find more information about Sherman Hardy and his campaign in the show notes down below. Thank you again so much for being on the Left-Handed Leftist. Thanks so much, Sherman Hardy, for being here with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
See y'all.